example, in Europe, to designate, to just give a name to areas, a site with geological interest. If it has interest, it means there's value, and there's means that it can be heritage. So a site with geological elements that have enough value or interest, with unique significance, then it is considered as geological heritage. So this site with geological heritage is what we call the geosite. Or geotope in some schools, some groups also call it geotopes, it's similar, okay? But it is important that this refers to the heritage, geological heritage that is not mobile, not portable, it's the outcrops, it's the mountain, it's the big landforms. When we talk about the elements in museums, that's not considered a geosite. Of course, it's movable elements of the geoheritage that can be in museums. Okay, the different values that will make it a heritage are normally the main one is the scientific, the intrinsic value. This is intrinsic refers to the properties that make it maintain the functions and processes and cycles, the natural cycles. Scientific refers to the information that we can obtain from these elements that is good for our planning, for our development of resources, or for our management of them, or for maybe for understanding how climates have evolved in the past. For example, this is very typical to preserve a site because it records the geological record of climates in an area. Okay, so this is scientific interest because it records this information about events that have happened in the past. The paleontology, for example, lets us understand the evolution of life, and because we know this evolution, we know also what to expect in the future and why things are like they are, and how to preserve them more properly. Other values of natural heritage, the rest, all these other ones, are a result of human consideration. So if it may be economic interest, or there's legends about geological elements, educational teaching, we use some outcrops to take our students to learn some basic concepts, and some outcrops may be very, very good examples. Representative, we call it educational interest, or didactic, pedagogic. So this is also human consideration. The aesthetics of the geological heritage also. Some landscapes that are mostly due to the geology, like in some volcanoes, some canyonlands, and so on. Some mostly landforms that are beautiful, that we see them and they attract tourism. Usually this is important for the tourism, the aesthetic value. Religious, some sacred sites, some sites are important for the religion. And this is important also for the geological elements. Some elements may not have any scientific interest, but if they have been for centuries and millennia considered by the population as something sacred with a lot of value, then it must be included in the management of geoheritage, okay? And again, as I was mentioning before, when we talk about geosite and about geoheritage in an area and geodiversity, we specify the site. We need to specify what surface, what boundaries to locate it on a map, and of course use geographic information systems. Because formerly many people have been representing geosites with dots on the map. This is of no use because a dot on the map for planning doesn't help, because we need to know if the road will cut it, we need to know who's the owner of the land, so we need to specify the boundaries of the surface. What has happened is that usually in biology, forestry, or agriculture, when you talk about heritage, about the natural heritage, you are more used to specifying this, to locate things on the maps with the boundaries. But in geology, many of the sites are just specified with a cross or with a star and a dot. And that's an old tradition, because normally it was not necessary to specify the exact boundaries of unless you are doing a map, a geological map, or a geomorphological or whatever kind of map. But when you want to plot the sites, I always emphasize this, that we need to locate the boundaries on the map if we want to have a proper management, useful information. Okay? Another important thing is the discussion between cultural and natural heritage, or cultural and natural elements. We had a problem, a serious problem with collision with archaeologists, with historians, because there was this law that considered fossils as historical heritage, and therefore, because it is history, as cultural heritage. And this was a big mistake. Why? Because, by definition, fossils cannot be historical or cultural heritage because they are natural elements. They are made by nature. It's not made by people, by humans. So, because the element is natural, if it has value, if you apply that formula that I was showing, then it has to be natural heritage, not cultural heritage. And you may have similar problems in your countries as well. So what is a classical, a typical problem with people that work with heritage, with cultural heritage or natural heritage, is that they consider that what makes it heritage is value. But this is not the case. What makes things, the type of heritage is defined by the element. The type of heritage is not defined by the type of value. Okay? And it's very simple. Why is this? I mentioned it in the beginning. You were not here. Because heritage is elements with value. The elements are fixed, are set. We know what elements we are talking about. And thus they are objective. There's no discussion about that. And if the element is tangible, the heritage is tangible. If the element is geological, the heritage will be geological. If the element is a species, then the heritage is a species, a protected species or a listed species. Okay. The value does not tell us what is the type of heritage, because the value changes with time. Some things have a lot of value now, some things may not have value tomorrow. For example, salt. The word salary comes from the word salt. Salt was used to pay the Roman soldiers and to pay as a payment, as a currency for paying. And when there was no other currency, other coins or money, because it was very valuable. But now you go to the shop and the salt is not worth much. And it was very much worth a few thousand years ago, because there was no refrigerators. It was needed for the animals and for the humans. It was absolute need. You cannot survive without salt. And this was known. And you have to give your cows salt, you have to give your sheep salt, and you have to keep your meat and things with salt. Okay, but you see that the value has changed with time. Now we don't use salt as a currency, but we have salaries, okay, and we get money. So the element, okay, is what defines the type of heritage. The value or its use is not what defines the type of heritage. So if something, we say, for example, it has historical value, doesn't mean that it is historical heritage. Because the fossils tell us about the history, but not the human history, the history of the earth, history of life. Okay? So this history of life is also history, but it's not what we consider human history strictly to be considered cultural heritage. Usually what separates cultural from natural is if it is made by nature or if it is made by humans. So if it is made or thought, like traditions are not made, well, it's knowledge. If it is made by humans, then it is a cultural element, and if it is very interesting and we want to preserve it, then we consider it cultural heritage. Okay? So it is important to differentiate what is natural from what is not. And this picture explains a little bit. This is not natural element, this is cultural element, and no problem to knock on the door, okay? Now we can do a little practice. We have some things that are known here, some of them are not so known, and I would like you to maybe take a sheet and write it first, maybe do it by yourselves personally, take it on a paper, write, you can make a similar drawing, like 5 squares or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. One is Stonehenge, you know this in Britain, Stonehenge. Another is Flint Point. This is the Gioconda. No? Is that the name of this painting? Painted by Leonardo da Vinci. La Mona Lisa. Not Gioconda?
Some people see.
Gioconda also is called La Mona Lisa.
Some people see.
This is Neanderthal skull, and this is a trilobite. So I want you to say what type of element, and if you would say that this is heritage or if it is not heritage. So and depending if it is heritage or not, what type of heritage. Each of them. It's better if you write it. So first it makes you think, and then we will go. So the Stonehenge is a group of very large rocks there. This is a point that is with a technique that was developed by the Cro-Magnons. So it's about several tens of thousands of years technique that was in use in Europe. Levallois, it's called. I don't know if you have heard.
Wrong parts.
Similar, it's little arrow points. But it was used by the earliest Cro-Magnon. It's called the earliest humans in Europe.
Before Neanderthal?
No, approximately at the time that the Neanderthals were finishing. And it's very simple, just so we can fix the concept, as they say, about what is geoheritage, what may be heritage or not, and what are the kind of elements. And particularly will depend, of course, if it is heritage, if it has value, and if it will have value or not, if we consider it of interest, and it will be of interest depending on its significance, if it is representative or if it is unique or rare, or so on. That will set the value, and that will tell us if it is heritage or not. Okay? More or less? Okay, so if we see, for example, Stonehenge, how many of those do we have in the world? Several, like those, very few in Europe, but not as well preserved, and not as, also there's some astronomic concepts in the construction, so you can predict the solstice and the equinox using the rocks. So it means there's a lot of knowledge put in there, and it has a lot of significance. It is unique, and it is this is actually, it's made of rocks. So would it be a geological heritage?
Yeah. No, not geological element.
Well, Arturo is saying it is geological heritage. This is what I wanted to come out, because this is important to have these concepts clearly. What is important there is the rocks, or is the construction itself?
Construction.
The construction. The rocks here are not important. Sorry, but it is. We will see the opposite thing. We will see an example of the opposite thing. So in this case, it is made of rocks, but usually geologists will not go there, or scientists or students will not go there to look at the rocks. What is interesting there is the construction, the style, the methods that have been used, how the rocks were put up, and all these things. So the human labor there, the human input. So because it is human-made and that's what we are looking at, then it is cultural element, and because it is very interesting, high value, then we consider it cultural heritage.
So I think the geologists have also done a lot of study on it.
Probably
They trace where the rock comes from, and also try to use cosmic ray to date the data.
Yes, of course. But this is studies to understand the origin of the rocks, where the humans brought them, and also to study when they were, the age of when it was built. So it's also a study of, geology can be used for many purposes as a science. But when people go there and when scientists go there, it's not because it is geological heritage, it's because it is cultural heritage, okay? Because the cultural values there is what is important. And of course, many studies have been done about the geology. Yeah. Thank you. Now, we look at the next one. This point, when I was showing this, if it is archaeologists that I'm talking to, they will say immediately this is of high interest, because this is a very classical technique, l'Evalois, for the building of these points, and it is human-made, so this is, it will be cultural heritage. But then I tell them, what happens if I did it? Because I can also go there and click, boom, boom, and make one. And drop it. Then, is it also cultural heritage? Must it be put in a museum? So it depends. It depends. In this case, Stonehenge, there's no doubt that it was made many years ago and about that. But in this case, that I'm just showing a drawing, a draft. If I had done it, then it has no cultural value. It is cultural element with no cultural value, so it's not cultural heritage. And what happens? Like what Arturo was mentioning, what happens if the flint, you know that, are you geologists? No. Some chert, the flint, the chert, sometimes it preserves the fossils very well. And in some cases, the microorganisms, for example, the foraminifera or diatoms, are very, very well preserved in chert. So that you can even look at the internal structure of the organisms in the rock. It's no longer alive, of course, it is substituted by silica, but it preserves very well in some cases. So what would happen if I made this, but I made it with a kind of chair that has excellently preserved foraminifera that are the only evidence of the internal structure of the evolution of the foraminifera in the Permian, for example. So then, maybe it has very high geological value, very high scientific interest, and maybe then this geological element, not the shape, which is human-made, but the rock may have interest. And then it would be geological heritage, if this is the only example of chert that is found in an area, for example. So, you know what my point is that you have to differentiate the human input and the natural input. The rocks may be, in some cases, of very high interest or of no interest. The human shapes or building may be of no interest or of high interest. And this interest will tell us if it is heritage or not, and if it is cultural or natural, in this case geological, will tell us the type of heritage. So if it is cultural element, cultural heritage. If it is a geological element, then it is geological heritage. Okay? And then the subjective character of the value will tell us if it is heritage or not. Then we look at the Mona Lisa of Leonardo da Vinci. It is kept with a lot of security in the Louvre Museum in Paris, in France. No? Cécile comes from France. And so that means that it is very important. They don't want anybody to touch it or to spit or to paint or to do anything on it. No, it is very high value. It is, but is it geological element? No. But it is made with geological elements. The paint also has oil, sometimes natural. Whether it may be organic, but sometimes it is from inorganic oils, and the pigments are made from minerals and from different rocks that give the colors, so different elements, cobalt, titanium, copper, all these elements that are obtained from the minerals and used for the paint. But in this case, normally the paint, these elements or the surface of the cloth when it is painted, that's not the interest. The interest is the human labor. But then what would happen if this is just a copy? Then if Leonardo da Vinci didn't do it, if it is just a professional copyist that is doing the painting, then it wouldn't be in the Louvre. It wouldn't be thought as similar value as the original. So that tells us of the uniqueness, no? The unique value of things and how they are very rare or not, and how unique they are. Of course, the professional copyist has a lot of work and also gets paid probably for that a big amount of money to make a very detailed copy of the painting. But the value is not the same as the original. The economic value, for example, of the copy will not be the same as the original.